During last Monday's broadcast, we heard from Professor Rupert Reed, spokesperson for Extinction Rebellion, on their renewed focus post COVID-19. And hopefully, over the next 40 minutes, we will discuss how businesses can be a force for good beyond their own operations and drive fairness and equality in justice systems. It's a live discussion, so as always, do get your questions in via slido.com, #RBSVirtual, or use the box just beneath the fold. But for now, I'd like to hand over to Matthias, Ashish, and Celia. Over to you.
Hello, hey, welcome, good afternoon. It's really great to be here. Thanks so much for having us. I'm Celia Ouellette. I am the CEO of the Responsible Business Initiative for Justice. Big thanks to Ethical Corporation for hosting us. I think we've got a really good tee up of our topic, but we are going to be talking about business engagement and activism in justice, which is several weeks ago, this was a really timely topic. Now it's a really, really timely topic. I'm joined by two amazing colleagues and friends, Ashish, Prashar, and Matthias Stausberg. And maybe let's just kick off by, do you guys want to briefly introduce yourselves? Matthias, little intro would be great.
Sure. Well, thank you so much to Ethical Corporation magazine, and also, of course, to you, Celia, and the Responsible Business Initiative for Justice for inviting me. Great to be here. My name is Matthias Stausberg. I'm the Group Advocacy Director at Virgin. And in that role, I look after essentially two things. A very mixed bag of different issues that Richard Branson and the Virgin Group are passionate about, social, environmental issues that we try to drive positive change on around the world. And then the second part of my job is to look after corporate engagement on some of these issues. How can we mobilize and inspire our businesses to take action on issues where we feel they have a role to play?
Ashish, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for Ethical Corporation for having us, and obviously the Responsible Business Initiative for Justice for organizing this panel as well. I'm a justice reform advocate and a PR professional, and sometimes this is really passionate for me because I was formerly incarcerated when I was 17 and then went on to a career in politics working for the likes of Boris, and I'm really sorry about that, and and Joe Biden most recently, before currently doing what I do at Publicis Group here in the United States.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you guys so much. So the format for today is I'm going to let rip with about 30 minutes of questions, and you guys are going to demonstrate your intellectual prowess and expertise of this subject. And then we're going to open it up to the guys listening and let them pepper us with questions for about 15 minutes. Should we kick it off with just kind of naming it? You know, I've alluded to it as I was introducing, but, you know, on this topic of justice, you know, what has changed in both the past months as we recover and look to rebuild from COVID, and in the past weeks with the murder of George Floyd on a sidewalk in the US? Ash, I think this question's got you all over it.
I mean, first, you know, we have to accept why we're here, right? And take a moment to think about all those Black lives that have been lost at the hands of the police. But, you know, this is not something new. It's just being visibly put in your face like never before because of all the technology that we have at our disposal. But, you know, I think when we discussed this before, I think for me, it's, I go back to Malcolm X saying, you know, he referenced, and I'm going to butcher this quote, he referenced sports being a distraction to Black liberation in the 60s when he was talking about Jackie Robinson becoming the first Black baseball player at the time. Now, I actually think that quote is so relevant today because of COVID-19, because COVID-19 had us locked in our homes for like 12 weeks. We've got 40 million people unemployed in the United States right now. We don't have sports. We don't have concerts. We don't have events. We don't have festivals to go to, and travel to a certain degree is, you know, is going to be restricted. All that combined has allowed for us not to be distracted. And even if those things slowly come back, you're not going to be able to go to those events the same way you were able to before. You won't be able to consume those events the way you were before. And all we have in our face is people being engaged with current events. You know, I've just never seen, I've been doing this work for a long time. I have never seen so many people out on the streets from so many different backgrounds giving their hearts to this cause right now, the Black Lives Matter movement. But, you know, what's happened here with this movement is the intersectionality has never been so great. I mean, we had a huge march in Brooklyn on Sunday for trans rights. You know, trans Black rights, and the LGBT community came out in mass. You had 50,000 people all over New York marching. You have hundreds of thousands of those individuals in California, and it's all these movements coming together because there are no distractions right now.
Yeah, I think that's so true, Matthias. I know this is something that you and I have talked about, you know, which is that there has been such an increased focus post-COVID on business engagement and social issues in particular, and social justice in the sort of sharpest, you know, focus of that. You know, what do you think, Matthias, of what is actually required of businesses, and how that has changed in this kind of great rebuild that we're beginning and anticipating, and how has like the social contract changed between businesses and their consumers?
A couple of thoughts on all of this. I thought what Ash was saying about not having a distraction at the moment, sort of giving undivided attention is really important. I think two things have happened over the last couple of months, and going back to COVID to start with, and it's still ongoing, of course, and, you know, we tend to think, you know, we're in Europe, the issue has faded from sort of the day-to-day attention, but, you know, it's still ravaging other parts of the world. I think COVID has shown just how vulnerable, fragile our current economic system is.
Yeah.
And how much we actually lack the resilience that we need to deal with these sort of big global issues. But I think it has shifted from a business perspective. It has just shown how much key stakeholders matter. Right? Yeah. Our own people, the people that work in our companies, our local communities, so societies as a whole. And I think related to that, there has been a shift in public sentiment or public expectation of what business should do and should engage on. Also because I think COVID is just affecting all of us, you know, and it's sort of given us all sort of this fear of anxiety and the sense of anxiety and fear. So you had that to begin with, and I think that has in some ways set a stage. And then you had the brutal killing of George Floyd and the subsequent protests and the rise of you know, the Black Lives Matter movement, really as a global movement. And I think that has sent an additional message to business that businesses can no longer be bystanders.
Yeah.
Ben & Jerry's came out, I'm sure you've all seen that last week, with a statement saying silence is no option.
Yeah.
I don't think silence was ever really an option, but I think there has never been a better time for businesses to become corporate advocates of causes that they're passionate about, that their employees are passionate about, that their communities are passionate about, and that people expect them more than ever before to engage on.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. I think that there's been this sort of increased awareness of the relevance and impact that businesses can have on a sort of community level. And that's been really welcome. You know, that's something that I know all three of us on this call have been like championing and asking for and working on and being a part of for a long time. And, you know, we've been there saying, this is relevant to you. And if you wade in, you can have impact. And I think that we're seeing that on a kind of new, bigger, more kind of imperative rather than optional level right now. And even the language around racism, you know, Ash, I know you know this really well, but like there's a lot of coding around businesses talking about racism in the justice system in America to the extent that they even tackled it. And now we have businesses that are, you know, just kind of very willing to say we have an objectively racist system and that needs to change. And I think that, you know, two things is like there's never been such a good opportunity for businesses to talk about controversial and difficult subjects, and also to admit their own lack of all the answers, right? And I think another thing that we're seeing is a lot of businesses saying, we don't know everything, we're learning, but we also are working at the same time. You know, Ash, what do you think about how this moment has forced businesses to kind of take a look at hard topics, right? And where that kind of risk lies in taking on or not taking on those kind of hard topics?
Yeah, so I think businesses always shy away from getting involved in politics, right?
Yeah.
To me, it's not a political issue. And I hope businesses can see this in similar light to apartheid. This is a human rights issue.
Yeah.
We have an issue that is an unbroken line of police violence in the United States that goes all the way back to the days of slavery. There is so much history in racist violence. Bringing one person, that cop, to justice isn't enough. And just shouting about it as a business as well as people in the streets is not enough. We're gonna all have to ask for systemic reforms and, frankly, a revolution about how we think about how we treat our fellow citizens in society. You know, look, issuing statements for support are really important. It's a starting point. I know the Black Square thing that happened last week was, you know, important to some brands. The real purpose of that, which I think got lost, was for us to be silenced so Black voices could be heard. And that was really important to do. But now we need to use the leverage that business has got to actually create that systemic change, similar to the way Coca-Cola did with apartheid. When they pulled out, it sent a message that we will not do business with you.
Yeah.
And we will not work in a state that is based on racism.
Yeah.
Companies and investors need to do the same now. We need to, you know, divest from the criminal justice system, divest from the prison industrial complex. How many brands, and I don't want to call anyone out individually on this thing, but how many brands and businesses have been called out in the past for having their labor in India and China being made by children, you know, for under $1 a day? But actually, they also do that here in the United States by having their products and services made in prisons by prison labor, which is effectively an extension of slave labor. So you need to take action to make sure some of that is addressed in your, like, as a business, to make a statement and then choose how you interact with law enforcement. And I'm talking about everything for whether you offer them discounts. You know, they are actively killing your fellow citizens, your customer, your employee. So you have to take a stand by your employee and customer in this moment and actually say, well, I'm not going to offer the police a discount if I'm a coffee chain or a fast food chain. And as another business, banking industry or something like that, I'm not going to bank the police.
Yeah.
So real decisions that people can make to actively move this movement even further forward at a revolutionary pace right now.
And I think this is so important to speak to right now. And I think the blueprint is there as well. This actually isn't breaking new ground, right? Mm-hmm. You know, JP Morgan stopped financing private prisons and immigration centers. Microsoft, you know, was called out by its shareholders for creating for employing prison labor. And the outcome of that was actually they have kind of an industry leading program to screen for prison labor now. So I think a lot of these stories of what businesses have done in the past have not necessarily made headlines, but that does not mean that they're not there. So, you know, I think that any business that is kind of beginning to dip a toe in justice advocacy and being justice engaged at this point is actually joining pretty good company. And I think that that's something that, you know, I want to talk about a lot more and, you know, use the platform to speak about a lot more, is like that there's a pretty good blueprint already laid out for what businesses have done. You know, talking a little bit about what businesses can do and, you know, those blueprints, you know, Matthias, like when that black tile comes down, you know, now that black tile has come down, what can businesses do? Like what are practical things that a business can do today, tomorrow? What can they kind of create KPIs for the next 6 to 12 months? This is what you do all the time. When we talk about businesses that have a blueprint, Virgin's one of them, and you're it. So what does that look like?
I think the first thing and the most important thing that businesses can do at the moment is to put actions before words.
Yeah.
And that's very, very important, because there is always in sort of emerging social movements like this, there's always the risk of hashtag activism. Sort of goes along for a while at high speed and high visibility, and then sort of drops off as the news cycle shifts to something else. So how do you stay engaged? How do you stay focused? And how do you sort of build a movement and really leverage your business strength and your relative strengths, like your voice, your networks, your resources, in a meaningful way? I'm glad Ash brought up South Africa and apartheid, because there's a good sort of instructive lesson here. I think it was about 1977 when the Reverend Leon Sullivan in Atlanta set up something called the Sullivan Principles, a sort of precursor to the social sustainability movement in business, trying to rally business around certain humanitarian principles and human rights principles, in this case related or targeting the apartheid regime in South Africa. And the Sullivan Principles caught on over time, and more primarily US business at the time signed on to them. And it really made a contribution in the business response to the apartheid regime. So it shows us that there is something that you can do, that there is a way that business can join forces, can engage in collective action, make their voices heard, and really drive change on an issue. Now, in this situation that we find ourselves in right now, I think there's three levels of action. One is, and this goes sort of deeper than business, we have to start with ourselves. And when I say ourselves, I of course refer to myself as a white person, as not a person of color. This is inside of us in so many ways. And we have to really take a deep, hard look at the ways in which we, in our day-to-day lives, perpetuate, exacerbate, contribute to everyday racism in some form or the other. It's little things, it's unconscious biases, it's stereotypes, it's sort of reactions in the spur of the moment, but they compound, right? And they contribute to the bigger picture of racism in our society. So we need to tackle that to begin with. And then we need to take it to the workplaces, to our businesses. And as I said, I'd like to put actions before words, which is why I'm a bit at unease, because I think every business at the moment struggles with race and ethnicity. Most businesses do. I think there's always a risk that race and ethnicity could become sort of an orphan child in the diversity and inclusion debate, because so many businesses just haven't done enough. Look at boardroom composition. Look at the progress, career progression of minority employees through businesses. Look at hiring processes. Even look at data and the availability of data in businesses. So I think we're no exception. Other businesses are no exception. There's a lot more that business must do now to really tackle the issue. And then the third level, of course, is the advocacy bit. And I think we have to become corporate lobbyists for the greater good. We have to, we lobby for all sorts of things that are in our business interest. I think now is the time to complement the sort of corporate affairs lobbying and advocacy with taking action, being a voice for the greater good. Also because it's in our own best interest. No business has an interest in seeing racial injustice, in seeing discrimination, in seeing violence. Because those things often go hand in hand with other breakdowns in governance. And so it's in the best business interest to take action now, but it's also in our enlightened self-interest, and it's what our stakeholders, what society, and increasingly what our employees expect from us. Look at Edelman's Trust Barometer last year, and the figures there on what employees expect of their CEOs and their management teams to do.
Yeah, I love that you mention, what is expected of CEOs. What do you think, Matthias, about the importance of buy-in from leadership of organizations and how that can be achieved? You work for an organization where your relationship with the highest level is extremely close, and you're being asked to engage in social issues rather than the other way around, right? You're not having to like beg and ask and plead, can you get Richard Branson to engage on social issues? You know, this is something that is part of his identity as a leader. So, you know, in that regard, you know, how important is that, and how can people build that within their companies? How can they get that buy-in from leadership? That I think is really important.
I think well, we've been blessed and privileged to have Richard Branson sort of take an interest in these issues for many years, and being outspoken and vocal on this, and really using his voice, his resources, and his networks to be a force for change. I think it always depends on the kind of purpose definition that you have. How do you define purpose for your own business, right?
Yeah.
Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself? What do you see your role in society? What kind of contribution do you want to make as a business? And then you need to find the kind of causes that align with that purpose definition. Mm-hmm. And in our case, I think we're at a point where we have this sort of vocal advocacy at the top, but we also see opportunities for engagement at the corporate level. Mm-hmm. So converting the advocacy, converting our voice into tangible action by businesses. So in the criminal justice space, that could mean supporting rehabilitation of people with a criminal conviction, hiring people with a criminal conviction. It means making resources available to fight systemic injustices. Our foundation, for example, Virgin Unite, has supported the Bail Project and other groups, groups that fight mass incarcerations. There's so many possible levels of engagement. They all have to go back to your own understanding of your corporate purpose. But I find it's not been difficult to mobilize our businesses to take action, to bring them on board, to see the value of this mission. I think especially in this day and age and the time that we live through it.
Yeah, I think go ahead, Ash. Yeah.
So I completely agree about finding what's good for you. I do think the one thing I think right now is this is like our version of the civil rights movement in our time.
Yeah.
All businesses, while they might have to find what works for them in 10 years and 15 years, I do think all businesses at this point will be judged on what actions they took right now for this movement.
Yeah.
Similar way to the civil rights movement and apartheid and everything else. I don't think you have a choice. If you're not involved, people will know when this is all said and done. I mean, even technology companies who've been selling facial recognition technology to law enforcement, you know, people who don't move because they're stubborn, you know, the likes of Google, IBM, and Amazon, they all pulled their technology because their employees, to your point, Matthias, earlier on, are just like, we're not going to do this. You know,
right.
Actual oppression. This is not something we signed up for. And I don't think you have a choice not to be involved in this right now. And then whatever you choose to do with other ethical work after that, I totally understand. I do think you need to find what works for your business and what aligns for that. But I do think right now, I think you have to take a moment to take a step back and listen to your employees, listen to your customers, but also listen to your Black employees, because you know, I think there's been an emotional burden that they've had to take on in the last 2.5 weeks to explain to all your white colleagues what their life is like, what they live through on a day-to-day basis, especially if you have offices in the United States. You know, the idea that a Black man or a Black woman has to think about being pulled over and the whole interaction, you know, explain to their child, you know, if the officer stops you, to put your hands up, do not argue. All these extra things that we, three of us probably on this panel, don't have to think about, and many people watching don't have to think about. And they've just spent 2 weeks explaining all of that, reliving it to their white colleagues. So empower them to help you get involved in this movement right now.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. And, you know, when we talk about advocacy and public advocacy, and I want to talk a little bit about private advocacy in a minute, but when we talk about public advocacy in particular, you know, Ash, you know, where does that balance lie between progress and perfection, you know, in getting it wrong versus saying nothing at all? Because, you know, this can be hard to get it right, and it can be very tempting to just kind of stay quiet and ride this out. I'll put that in heavy air quotes. But, you know, how does a business navigate this, and does it need to? You know, can it just put a tile out there and do things quietly, or does it need to say more and need to engage more? I think that's a little bit of a layup, but that's a question for you, Ash.
Yes, they need to engage more. I mean, I think the tile is one thing, and you know, I think it's really important. Obviously, I think Matthias touched on one of his earlier answers, like, you know, employing more diverse, having more diversity in your organization, also promoting and paying them the right way.
Yeah.
We've all businesses, frankly, at least when I think of North America, we've all made profits from Black culture. Like, I think of everything from Nike to soft drinks to food to I can't think of a business in my industry, advertising and everything else, like, that hasn't been driven by African American culture, and we profited of it. Well, it's time to take care of it and its people. You don't and you know, to your point about writing this out, this is not going away. Like, COVID is this moment where I know most companies aren't going back to the office at least till the next year at this point. At least anyone who's enabled to be able to work from home.
Yeah.
Right? So not going away. This is going to be in front of you. And I can say, as someone who's been on the front line of those marches, every day they've got bigger. They've got bigger, and more people I know, at least in my office, in my world, are going to them. People who I would never traditionally describe as an ally or everything else, they are going, and they're finding time in the middle of the day because they're working from home to go to these marches and make their voices heard. So you as a business don't have a choice, because between now and this election, for example, it's not going away. Everyone's going to make their voices heard because they do know this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to transform and, you know, create a revolution in our justice system. I don't think we're going to get this opportunity again like this. All the cards have aligned, all the stars have aligned, to give us this opportunity to change how we treat a certain community in our country.
Yeah. And I think from a business perspective, for me, as somebody who's worked on this with businesses, the sticking point on engaging in justice and social justice issues has often been that, like, to go back to the beginning of this conversation, that they don't really get how it's relevant to them, right? They do understand that issues in their supply chain, that's relevant to them, or even maybe, you know, hiring formerly incarcerated people, that's relevant to them. But at what point does thousands and thousands of your customers, employees, consumers, clients marching in the street become relevant? I mean, of course that's relevant to you. These are the people that you're selling to and giving services to, and so it's relevant by dint of the fact that it's popular in the sense of that people want it. People want to see change. They, you know, a movement to defund the police has taken off in the US in a way that I don't think I would have predicted, to be honest. You know, that's taken even me by surprise, and like, I'm somebody who's a sort of veteran criminal justice reform campaigner. So I think that it's, you know, do you guys agree that it's kind of relevant? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it brings us back to your earlier question about the social contract.
Yeah.
What has changed, right? We like to, another term that's often used is the social license to operate of business.
Yeah.
And I think that has shifted significantly in the last 10, 15 years. I remember a time when this sort of social license to operate was mostly based on the idea that, okay, well, you as a business come into our community, you generate employment, you generate some wealth for our community, for our country, for our economy, and in exchange, we're willing to pick up some of the risk that you would bear as a business. That has changed completely now, because it's no longer about just generating jobs, creating jobs, or generating wealth. It's about taking a stand. So we expect you as a business to be an enlightened actor in the wider social debate, and take a stand and make your resources, leverage your resources, make your voice heard, and help us drive change on these issues. So we've moved from do no harm to be a driver of change.
Right. Yeah.
And that's really, I mean, that's a phenomenal development of the last couple of years, and I think it's completely changed the landscape. But everything we know, all the public opinion research we know, seems to support that.
And we've used the word leverage a bunch, and I want to take just a couple of minutes to kind of unpack what we mean by that, because again, I think that's something that's kind of coded a lot of the time when we say use your leverage. And, you know, one of the things that I actually love about the privilege of working with you, Matthias, and with Richard Branson is that this is a person, a leader who is equally willing to do things quietly when that's what's called, you know, that when that's what's helpful to reach out on the phone or by letter to a government leader, because he knows that he has power where other people don't. And that's not going to earn him headlines, but that's helpful to the community, and that he will do that. And I think I kind of want to just spell out and name it, you know, what we mean when we say use your leverage, and what we're asking of businesses when we ask them to use their leverage. Ash, you're nodding away. I'm glad you love my question. So let rip.
Earlier on, I mean, I don't think businesses should be working with the police force. I don't think you should offer them a discount in America right now. You have to treat this like apartheid. You shouldn't be banking them. You shouldn't be investing for their unions, because the unions are actually probably more responsible for a lot of the damage you're seeing in our society by protecting police officers. You've got, in the case of the officer that killed George Floyd, he had something like 17 prior incidents of abuse and racism tagged to him, but the unions hide that. So while you invest their pensions, think about what you're doing to that. You're giving them the power to actually protect officers who are killing your fellow citizen. And on the wider criminal justice spectrum, I mean, do not work with prisons, do not use their labor. You know, they are a profit-making capitalist machine. And, you know, when you're doing the phone calls for them, when you provide the transportation, when you, like you said earlier on, JP Morgan shows they're not going to invest in private prisons, but I'm hearing, you know, a lot of other banking industries are just going to pull out of all prisons, period, forget like just the private prison part of this. And then also, I think the final nail in the coffin for the justice system is, to your point, Matthias, is advocacy. I mean, we are going to have to put resources into organizations fighting for this change, not just financially, but putting our brand and our whole company's like organizational structure behind these people. Because that should be everyone in this room, frankly. I mean, it should be in just not the individuals on the street. It should be all of us fighting for this, because at the end of the day, we're just fighting for people. That's what we got to come back to. We're fighting for people to not be killed. And even since George Floyd's death, I have to remind everyone, you know, we've had many other people killed by the police. More recently, sadly, lynchings, who they're being investigated, 5 over the last few days. Black men hanged to trees. And if that is not triggering enough for you to get on the streets and actually put your business behind this, I don't know what else is, because history is looking right now.
Yeah, I think it's so important to mention putting resources into organizations too. And this is actually something that we don't talk about a lot, that have been more, which is, you know, as businesses look to, you know, say the right thing and do the right thing, there's a really obvious group of people that can help you with that. And they're the people that are experiencing this and have been working in this in the system for many years. Like whenever we have a business reach out to us and say, like, we really want to understand more about this, first thing we do is get them on a call with somebody who's formerly incarcerated. Because those conversations, uncomfortable though they might be, are how you learn and how you get it right. You know, it's a sort of human response to a human problem. So if you can apply a sort of human approach to it, you're probably going to come to the right answer. It's not really rocket science.
I also want to say to anyone who goes, oh, if you were formerly incarcerated like me, why can't more people come back and do what, you know, change their life, right?
Yes.
I would say to you, my story could not have happened in the United States of America. It started in the UK. And that was a massive change in the way my path was created. Look, the 13th Amendment, which is, you know, give people equal rights, also had written in it, as I guess you could call it, fine print, if you were convicted of a crime, you don't have those equal rights. Right. So what that allowed people to do is use law enforcement to recreate slavery effectively after the passing of that amendment. It basically, they started to arrest Black citizens to put them in prison, so then they could use them as labor. And you know, we need to lobby to amend that amendment too, so we're not put in that position. And because my story doesn't happen here, because those barriers would have been closed to me because of that amendment in and of itself.
Yeah. I think we have to. Oh, sorry, Matthias, go ahead.
2 or 3 points to add to that. I agree with all of that. I think there are three sort of pieces of advice that I would give organizations sort of as they're looking into this and sort of moving forward and trying to come to terms with their potential for social activism, for advocacy, for the greater good. I think to Ash's point, listen to those who live through this. Within your business, outside your business, I can tell you that from our experience, we've learned the most from listening to people who are involved with criminal justice organizations, people who have often been sort of on the receiving end of discrimination and injustice, and who've told us their story, and that has sort of really helped us as a business, us as individuals, to see things differently, and then sort of discuss a course of action. The second point is partner smartly. There are fantastic organizations out there, like your Celia and others, that are doing great work in this space, that have built the necessary expertise. We're not experts. We're not experts on criminal justice. We're not experts on human rights issues and other things. We have a vision, a passion, a purpose, definition, but we really want to move these issues forward, but we can only do that if we find the right organizations to partner with. And then the third thing that I really take as a big takeaway from the last couple of weeks is this is the moment for businesses to hire social impact managers. To bring in the people that look beyond the sustainability of your own operations to the wider societal impact that you can achieve as a business, and bring people in and help and let them help you articulate a vision for social impact, and then really turn that into reality.
I think if I had to say, if I had to say the one thing of all the hundreds of businesses that we work with, the one thing that defines the businesses that are really getting this right, they're the businesses that have named that person and hired that person and have a person whose job it is to do this work, to engage in social impact, to engage in social justice issues. And that person has the authority to really kind of make progress. They're central to the organization's function. They're talking to leadership, or they are leadership. And that kind of, to me, that defines, if I was to get a business to do something tomorrow to really commit to long-term change, it would be to hire the person who is going to build your strategy for long-term change. Like, no question in my mind. Put us out of a job. We would love to not be that idea generator and that, memo creator and that person that's kind of organizing the rabble, let there be hundreds of Matthiases and hundreds of Ashishes. And if you don't have anyone on your staff with lived experience of the justice system, then thing two would be, you got to start hiring them, because then you will learn really quickly what you need to do. I see that is it question time? Is that where we're at? Okay, we're done, or we're at question time?
Done, unfortunately.
Guys, I could talk.
Blown by.
This has been amazing. So thank you so much. I think we hand back to Ethical Corporation now, but I'm really grateful. We're very contactable on responsiblebusinessinitiative.org. Super happy to answer questions, tweeting at RBI_justice. Reach out, chat, keep the conversation going.
Thank you to the three of you. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Matthias, and thank you, Celia.